I used to think I was afraid of being disliked. But now when I look back, I think I was afraid of discovering that no amount of approval could make me feel like myself. There is a terrifying possibility that most of the suffering in our lives were never caused by rejections. It came from anticipations. It's as though standing in invisible courtrooms that existed only in your mind, presenting evidence to judges who never asked for a trial, rehearsing versions of yourself that might earn a verdict you could survive. Maybe that is why you're exhausted. Not because life has been particularly cruel, but because you have spent years carrying a crowd inside your head. A crowd of former lovers, former friends, former versions of yourself, strangers whose names you barely remember, each one holding a pen, each one writing a different story about who you are. And somewhere along the way, their stories became louder than your own, and you began reading yourself through their eyes. You know that strange feeling when a conversation ends and your mind immediately begins replaying everything you said, searching for evidence that you were too much, not enough, too loud, too quiet, too honest, too distant? Most people call that overthinking, but what it really feels like is putting yourself on trial for the crime of being human. And the tragedy hides in how ordinary this keeps becoming. A person can spend decades living as a character in narratives they never chose. A person can become so devoted to managing perceptions that they slowly lose contact with the one thing perception can never touch, and that is their own reality. Because strangers are careless authors. Some will meet you for 5 minutes and decide they know your entire soul. Some will witness a single mistake and mistake it for your identity. Some will encounter the wounds you carry and call them flaws, and others will encounter your boundaries and call them cruelty. Their interpretations drift through the world, wearing the mask of truth, and most people are unfortunate enough to believe them, perhaps because there is something quite seductive about allowing others to define us. Responsibility becomes lighter, uncertainty becomes quieter, and the burden of deciding who we are gets handed to somebody else. And for a little while, that feels comforting. Until the day you discover that every person has been reading and writing a different book with your name on the cover. One remembers your kindness, another remembers your absence. One remembers the version of you that existed before the heartbreak. Another only knows the person the heartbreak created. If one sees a hero, the other sees a villain, and neither of them are holding the complete story. We human beings do not experience each other directly. We experience interpretations and fragments. What people carry of you is rarely your entire existence. It is the small piece of you that happened to collide with the small piece of them. And yet people spend their whole lives trying to control these mere reflections. We become editors of a manuscript that multiplies faster than it can be revised. One version for family, one version for friends, one version for lovers, one version for colleagues, one version for strangers online, one version for people we hope will stay, one version for people we fear might leave. And as the years pass, the performance grows larger while the self grows smaller. Then one day, you feel the exhaustion arrive, a peculiar kind of exhaustion, the kind that sleep cannot heal, because the body understands something the mind has avoided for years, that you were never meant to carry all those characters. You were never meant to maintain every interpretation. You were never meant to spend your life correcting stories that continue being rewritten the moment you leave the room. You see how the ocean does not pause to explain itself to every passerby, how the moon does not negotiate its worth with the clouds, and how the forest does not seek permission to become itself. But we human beings, we stand before mirrors built from other people's opinions and wonder why our reflection keeps changing. And perhaps freedom begins with a simple realization, and that is, you will be misunderstood. Not occasionally, but repeatedly, And inevitably, someone will reduce your entire existence to a single chapter. Someone will remember your worst days and forget your 100 quiet acts of kindness. Someone will carry a version of you that feels almost unrecognizable. And the truth is, none of this can be prevented. And the moment you stop fighting that reality, something extraordinary happens. The walls begin to fall. The performance begins to crack. The constant surveillance of your own personality starts to loosen its grip. You stop asking how you appear. You start asking how you feel. You stop asking who approves. You start asking what is true. And just like that, the distance between your public self and your private self starts to grow smaller. Your voice becomes steadier. Your choices become clearer. Your relationships become more honest. And for the first time in a very long time, your life begins to feel inhabited. Because there is a profound difference between being admired and being alive. One depends on an audience. The other depends on presence. One can disappear overnight. The other remains even when the room is empty. And to me, that is what maturity really looks like. It's not becoming immune to judgment or indifferent to love. It's simply reaching a point where neither praise nor criticism is allowed to hold a pen for too long. Because this story was never theirs. Their opinions were just footnotes. Their assumptions were only annotations scribbled in the margins. Their projections belonged to them long before they ever attached them to your name. But the pages have always belonged to you, and the book has always been yours. And maybe the most beautiful chapter begins the moment you take the pen back and stop letting spectators write in your book. The moment you stop chasing approval through 1,000 shifting faces. The moment you sit quietly with yourself and realize that your life was never a popularity contest disguised as destiny. It's a story. It's your story. And the pen is longing for you to start writing it yourself.